for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
I am announcing that today we are filing a lawsuit against Donald Trump for violating the law as part of his efforts to generate profits for himself, his family, and his company. The complaint demonstrates that Donald Trump falsely inflated his net worth by billions of dollars to unjustly enrich himself and to cheat this system, thereby cheating all of us. He did this with the help of the other defendants, his children, Donald Trump Jr., Ivanka Trump, and Eric Trump, and former Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg and Trump Organization Controller Jeffrey McConney. Mr. Trump and the Trump Organization repeatedly and persistently manipulated the value of assets to induce banks to lend money to the Trump Organization on more favorable terms than would otherwise have been available to the company, to pay lower taxes, to satisfy continuing loan agreements, and to induce insurance companies to provide insurance coverage for higher limits and at lower premiums.
Well, the voice you just heard there is that of New York Attorney General Letitia James. In a news conference that occurred on Wednesday, where she announced a lawsuit against Donald Trump, his 3 adult children, and the Trump Organization, among others. And we're going to get real deep into that this week. It's not been a good week for Donald Trump, has it?
No, hey, you know, this guy hit 60 home runs in New York. I posted a meme that said the real home run hitter in New York is Letitia James.
I can't disagree with you there.
She socked it to him. It was beautiful. I mean, it brought tears to my eyes.
Well, with a tear in our eye, we bring you this week's episode of Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson.
My name is Jack Prince.
And we will talk more about Letitia James's news conference as well as play some clips from that. We also have to talk about other bad news for Donald Trump involving the DOJ and the documents that were seized at Mar-A-Lago.
Yeah.
We also have to talk about a horrible case involving QAnon over in Walled Lake. You're kind of familiar with that area.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that. We have a double hammer time segment this week. You'll really love that. Plus, we've got 2 off-the-cuff stories that are one's really bizarre, the other one's a really good one. You'll love it. And we have audio for that second one. So we'll end on a good note here, but let's go ahead and start out by reminding everyone that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on YouTube by doing a search for Southpaws Radio. And you can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Stitcher, Podvine, Google Podcast, Podcast Addict, and now on Pandora by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube accounts. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern, and you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, and KEPJ in San Antonio, Texas. And another thank you to the folks at WNHN for downloading last week's episode, or I think it was the episode from 2 weeks ago. Thank you for downloading us, and we hope you consider us on your guys' wonderful station. They're the flagship for the Arnie Arneson show.
Mm-hmm.
So, very familiar with WNHN. All right, well, let's get to, we might as well, I was going to start with the DOJ, but let's go ahead, let's go to the New York Attorney General, because this is just fantastic stuff. I do have more audio that I want to play, and we'll get to some of that in a little bit here. And I have this story. This is Mira Wassef writing for the Associated Press. This is dated September 21st. Out of New York, and this is all courtesy of WPIX TV as well, who reported this to the AP. As we mentioned at the top of the show, New York Attorney General Letitia James is suing Donald Trump and 3 of his adult children for alleged business fraud. James said that Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and Ivanka Trump, all 4 of them, and his company falsely inflated his net worth by billions of dollars to get banks to give him favorable interest rates. James is seeking to bar Trump and his children from ever running a company in New York again. She also wants Trump to pay back $250 million that he received from this alleged fraud. So this is just amazing stuff here. James said there were 200 examples of alleged fraud in the complaint, including declaring that his home was 3 times bigger than it was. She's also referring the matter to the federal authorities to conduct a criminal investigation. So this is fantastic. Did you ever think this day would come, Jack? We've talked about this off air.
No, it was a real celebration. You know what really struck me, beyond the fact that she just had her salient research and went through one example after another of overvaluation. The one, for example, of his penthouse that he said was 30,000 square feet. And in fact, it was only 11,000 square feet. He put a value on it of $320 million. And she said, there's never been an apartment in the history of New York that sold for anywhere near that. She had him pegged to the board. But what really was a treat for me was her attitude. Her attitude, which I don't care. They're going to claim it's a political heist. They're going to claim that she made a vendetta when she was elected, that she'd get Trump. But the truth is, she had a burden on her heart to show America the corruption of this man's entire life. The entire complete history of his business dealings in New York has been a scam, has been a fraud, has been a hustle. And she was so disgusted. At one point, she said, and it just, it brought tears to my eyes. She said, astounding. It's just astounding.
It is.
Now, you can talk about subjectivity where somebody said, yeah, I thought my house was worth $2 million. I was only off by, $4 million. But when you have 200 of these chronological extending back to the beginning of his career, this is just not a bad estimation. This is systemic corruption.
This is a pattern of deceit.
Like no other person and speaker have I heard go after Trump. Have I heard it so beautifully portrayed, complete with the backup research. It was a home run. It was out of the park.
Yeah, I tell you what, let's go ahead and let's play cut 1 here of Letitia James. This one runs about 50 seconds. Take a good listen to this, folks.
As part of demonstrating illegality under that section of Law 6312, we show that they violated several state criminal laws, including falsifying business records, issuing false financial statements, insurance fraud, and engaging in a conspiracy to commit each of these state law violations. We believe the conduct alleged in this action also violates federal criminal law, including issuing false statements to financial institutions and bank fraud. And we are referring those criminal violations that we've uncovered to the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York and the Internal Revenue Service.
Uh-oh, the IRS is going to get involved in this one, Jack.
Oh, I know.
I think Trump is in deep, deep trouble. Trouble's not the word I want to use.
But But what a list. What a list of crimes. Bing, bing, bing. And all that orange bucket of pus can say today is that it was another witch hunt. And that's all he could say. He could not address a single charge. He has no answers for facts that show the overestimation. You've got an appraised value here, and you've got his claim there. There's no wiggle room. There is no wiggle room. Trump says she is part of a witch hunt. Absolutely right. And she found the witch. Yeah. She's got the witch in the witch's family.
I wonder if you put water on Trump, if he'll start melting. I'm melting.
I know what kind of water I would put on him if I had the chance.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Well, we got another clip that we want to play here. This is cut to, I'm not sure what this is, but this runs about a minute. Let's just follow along here. This is great stuff.
Of these violations, we are asking the court to, among other things, permanently bar Mr. Trump, Donald Trump Jr., Ivanka Trump, Eric Trump, from serving as an officer or director in any corporation or similar entity registered and or licensed in New York. To bar Mr. Trump and the Trump Organization from entering into any New York State commercial real estate acquisition or from applying for loans from any financial institution in New York for 5 years. To pay for the financial benefits obtained as a result of the persistent fraudulent practices at an estimated $250 million. And towards the end of my remarks, I will go into the other relief that we are seeking.
Yeah, so she's going after a lot of different things here. Let's kind of break it down a little bit. The big one is the money, of course, which $250 million is for Trump. I'm sure he could raise it from his Russian buddies. Just saying, folks. Just saying.
Well, in comparison to the monies he gained by this fraud for these decades, it's a drop in the bucket. But it is a penalty that he felt right.
Yeah. But to bar him from being able to purchase real estate or get involved in any real estate deals for the next 5 years, that's something. Mm-hmm. And even then, to not be involved in any corporate boards based out of New York forever. Lifetime. Oh, that just hurts. That's got to hurt him to the core, because he just loves sticking his thumb right in the eye of everybody else. It's good to see the tables turned on this orange pig.
But it's in no way excessive. It's not hyperbole. The punishment is so appropriate. I mean, if you put road signs across New York with a picture of Trump with a line through it, poison, do not let this near you, it wouldn't be excessive. There's nothing other than taking him on a pole and dunking him in the Hudson River, like they used to do with witches, since it is a witch hunt. 250,000 dunks or 250 million would not be excessive.
He might meld in the Hudson River. I don't know. Well, tell you what, let's go to cut 3 here, because this is where she talks about old Donnie Orange Hands invoking his Fifth Amendment quote-unquote rights. This runs about 1:06. Take a good listen to this one, folks. This is great.
Mr. Trump and Mr. Weisselberg would meet to review and approve the final statement every year. Mr. Trump made known through Alan Weisselberg that he wanted his net worth reflected on the statements to increase, a desire Mr. Weisselberg and others carried out year after year in their fraudulent preparation of the statements. And when asked about these meetings under oath as part of our deposition, both men, Mr. Trump and Mr. Weisselberg, invoked their Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination, and they refused to answer. When asked under oath if he, Mr. Trump, continued to review and approve the statements after becoming President of the United States in 2017. Mr. Trump, again, invoked his Fifth Amendment privilege and refused to answer.
Now, that's a big one there, because the law is when you become president, you're to put all of your assets in a trust, and you're not supposed to have any say over it whatsoever until you leave office. Mm-hmm. And for Trump to invoke his Fifth Amendment, to me, my opinion, he definitely did it while he was president. This should automatically disqualify him from ever running for any office ever again. That includes running for dog catcher.
150 times he evoked that constitutional right. And we have to remember his echoing words that said very clearly and succinctly, anybody who pleads the Fifth is guilty. And,
yes.
And then comes right around and proves it without a doubt.
Yep. Let me get back to the story. Again, this is Mira Wasif for the Associated Press. I'm going to skip down quite a bit here because we've covered quite a bit with all these different quotes here. Donald Trump's attorney Alina Habba and New York Republican Party Chairman Nick Langworthy blasted Letitia James's lawsuit. Langworthy called it, quote, one of the most brazen political publicity stunts I have seen during my lifetime, end of quote. Habba said the lawsuit is, quote, neither focused on the facts nor the law. Rather, it is solely focused on advancing the Attorney General's political agenda.
That is so far from the mark. It forte our facts. How many pages? How many pages?
240
of facts.
240 pages of documentation.
What an statement. What an idiot. You talk about a political statement. That's the worst I've heard.
Habba also said, quote, it is abundantly clear that the Attorney General's office has exceeded its statutory authority by prying into transactions where absolutely no wrongdoing has taken place, end of quote. I think the banks would disagree with that. I think the people in New York would disagree with that.
Yeah, right.
Unreal. Longtime company executives Alan Weisselberg and Jeffrey McConney are also named defendants in the suit filed in state court Wednesday. Weisselberg, a senior Trump Organization advisor and formerly the company's longtime chief financial officer, has pled guilty to evading taxes and other charges. Weisselberg admitted taking in over $1.7 million worth of untaxed extras, including school tuition for his grandchildren, free rent for a Manhattan apartment, and lease payments for a luxury car, and explicitly keeping some of the plums off the books.
Yeah. The rats are showing up. The rats are coming out of their holes. They're being inside.
Hey, I got a box out in the garage now. You plug it in, you turn it on, and it's supposed to drive all the rodents out of your garage and away from your property. It sounds god-awful, but supposedly it works.
Probably a Trump speech.
I never thought of using that. That might work.
Hey, let's patent that. Heck yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Remove all rodents, bacteria, snakes, alligators.
Yeah.
Anything with the ability to hear will leave.
In one of the Facebook groups that I'm in, somebody asked the question, what's the song that would be playing in a loop in hell? My response, Lee Greenwood, I'm proud to be an American.
Oh, yes.
I hate that. I'll restate what I've said before on this show. I would take every copy of that song and I would burn it.
I know.
And roast marshmallows over it.
If I had to listen to that, say, for even 5 hours, my molars, which I should have pulled out, they'd be ground out. I could spit them out in the basket.
By the way, Attorney General Letitia James is also looking to permanently bar Weisselberg and McConney from working as financial heads of any New York companies. But I've saved the best clip for last, Jack. This only runs 9 seconds. This is the greatest jab at Donald Trump ever. Take a listen.
Claiming you have money that you do not have does not amount to the art of the deal. It's the art of the steal.
Bingo! Bingo!
Yeah. Oh, she's dynamite. Man, is she good. Absolutely. And why the Democrats don't just plaster that on social media? Get that out word for word. Put it on billboards. Hand out. You know, they have, I'm not exaggerating here, books that are being handed out at Trump rallies that say Trump is the Son of Man. The Son of Man, which means he is the returned Christ. I'm not making it up.
I've seen those books. I've seen the covers of them. They're all over social media.
Yeah, and this isn't the fringe people. These isn't the QAnon wackos. These are to the regular run-of-the-mill four-wheel drive Confederate knuckleheads that go to his rallies.
Oh, exactly.
That are sucking this stuff up.
Yeah. Oh, he's the Son of Man. He's the return.
He's the son of manure, manure.
He's a son of a bitch is what he is. I'll say it. I don't care.
I feel better.
Yeah, I feel better too, by the way. And again, Wednesday was not such a great day for Donald Trump. I also have this story. This is Melissa Quinn writing for CBS News, dated September 22nd, out of Washington. A federal appeals court on Wednesday granted a request from the Justice Department to allow its investigators to regain access to the roughly 100 documents bearing classification markings that were seized by the FBI during its search at Mar-A-Lago. A three-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit agreed to put on hold a lower court's order that kept the subset of sensitive records off limits for the Justice Department to use for investigative purposes, pending the review of the materials by an independent arbiter known as a special master. By the way, we should let you know, 2 of those 3 judges were appointed by Donald Trump. Britt Grant and Andrew Brasher were the 2 appointed by old Orange Pig.
And that judge has come out unequivocally and said, you're going to have to put up or shut up. No more talk about declassification. Your attorneys need to show evidence and examples of declassification. And what did Trump do within minutes? Came up with the most bizarre answer to that charge from the judge, saying that he could telepathically declassify those documents.
I could think about it and declassify it.
What's that? Yeah,
I could think about it and declassify it. Unreal.
With his mind. Absolutely. And then he went on to say, this one might be even more bizarre, that they had warned the various agencies in New York to watch out for fraud, which may be total BS. But even if they did warn and then they got away with it, then you can't expunge the fact that it was massive financial fraud. Whether any agency caught it or not is a criteria not the criteria for crime. Are you kidding me? So if I shoot somebody and nobody catches me, it's all right? His thinking has gone totally bonkers.
Oh, exactly. Oh, well, I can just declassify anything. If I think it, I can declassify it if I just think about it.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
No, it's not how it works. By the way, the 3rd judge on the 11th Circuit 3-judge panel is Robin Rosenbaum, who was appointed by Barack Obama. So getting back to the story here, in its 29-page opinion, the panel said it agreed with the Justice Department that the federal district court in South Florida likely erred in blocking investigators' use of the classified records and then requiring them to submit the sensitive documents to the outside arbiter for review. So there it is. The judge was wrong in Florida. Well, it's a Trump judge. What do you expect?
Yeah.
Unreal.
No, the walls are closing in on this guy.
They are.
This absolute bum.
Yeah. The judges in the ruling said in part, quote, "For our part, we cannot discern why Trump would have an individual interest or need for any of the 100 documents with classification markings. Classified documents are marked to show they are classified, for instance, with their classification level," end of quote. The judges continued that Trump, quote, has not even attempted to show that he has a need to know the information contained in the classified documents, end of quote. The judges also said there's no evidence in the record before them that the roughly 100 documents at issue were, in fact, declassified. The panel wrote, quote, in any event, at least for these purposes, the declassification argument is a red herring because declassifying an official document would not change its content or render it personal. So even if we assume that Trump did declassify some or all of the documents, that would not explain why he has a personal interest in them. End of quote. So they're saying it doesn't matter if he declassified, he shouldn't have had him in the first place.
And it's the whole clown show. The whole troop of clowns really is getting the spotlight on it. Alex Jones today was in a screaming match, just melting down. Oh, yeah, it was fantastic. And then some bozo, an actual GOP candidate, was integral in the voting machine scheme that is caught on film, them walking in physically somewhere down in Georgia with their hand on the votes.
I saw that.
Big, fat, smoking gun. Undeniable. But don't worry. The Republicans here in our state are a little more responsible. There's a Republican in the UP named Mark Barganian who introduced really dynamite legislation. This is just, I think, this past week, to change the state bird from the robin to the deep-throated wobbler. So,
what?
Oh, yeah. You haven't heard this?
No.
This is heavy stuff. Yeah, those Republicans, they're busily working for the benefit of us all. Take the robin out of the bird of the state bird and put in this wobbler. When he was in the Army, he heard one of these birds sing in the UP, and he vowed right then and there. Now forget the hunger in the streets. Forget the educational, crisis. Forget any legislation that would be pertinent, helpful to people, but take time and tax dollars to change the state bird. His name, I'm not making this up, is Greg Markenian from Hancock, Michigan.
Yeah, I know where that is. That's up right deep in the UP.
Deep in darkness.
Something, I don't know. And here's the thing. You mentioned the education crisis. Let's add that it's the education crisis that the Republicans in the state created.
Oh, yes.
Along with help from Debbie Stabenow. Don't believe us? You need to look for the Michigan Public Radio article about it that was published years ago, folks. Don't take our word for it.
That we highlighted, that we talked about exclusively. Yeah.
And we are the only ones that talk about this. The only ones. You won't hear it with any of the media around here. You won't hear it on NPR. Well, you did years ago. I doubt they'll run it again. This is stuff you find by listening to this show.
Yeah, and you won't hear anywhere else the fact that the school board election right here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, all of the candidates, not one of them mentioned the word privatization. Not one of them said anything about the two bills, one passed in Washington in the Supreme Court, the other passed in the Supreme Court here in Michigan, that allow public money to be given to private and charter mandates. I'm taking those words right out. I could get you the very number of the bill here, which means for the first time, in contradiction to the Michigan State Constitution, that says no public funds should be used for any private or charter schools. That's been breached. That's been chipped away because of the effort of, as you mentioned, Betsy DeVos and the public school dilemma and crisis. Not one school board member addressed it, said a peep about it.
No, you won't hear that from them, ever.
No, you won't. No, you won't.
All right, we've kind of mentioned QAnon a little bit here, and Trump's starting to pander to those wackos again. Q. We have this. This is a really tragic story from WXYZ television. This is dated September 13th. This is out of Walled Lake, Michigan, which is right outside of Detroit, correct, Jack?
Yep.
Let me read this here. 21-year-old Rebecca Lannis said her grandmother called her Sunday morning and asked if she was in the hospital. Unaware of the tragedy that unfolded at her home in Walled Lake, Rebecca said she found that to be a strange question. She said she was at a friend's sleepover. Rebecca soon learned that her father shot her mother and her sister.
Yeah.
Her sister was critically injured. Her mother was killed. Rebecca said, quote, "I had a really close bond with my mom, and I can't believe she's not here," end of quote. The Oakland County Sheriff said when officers responded to the home, 52-year-old Igor Lannis opened fire on them. A Walled Lake police officer and an Oakland County Sheriff's deputy returned fire and killed him. The Sheriff's Department said that Igor had also killed the family dog. Here's where it gets really scary, folks. Rebecca said her father had never been physically violent, but his behavior started spiraling about 2 years ago. She said, quote, "He became a different person after 2020 when Trump lost," end of quote. She said he started getting more agitated at normal things and that he often found a way to bring up conspiracies about the vaccine, 5G cell phones, and electromagnetic fields. Rebecca also said that her father turned to extremism like QAnon, a political conspiracy theory and political movement. It centers around baseless claims that Donald Trump was fighting enemies within a so-called deep state and a sex trafficking ring was being run by satanic cannibals. Which is all bullshit, by the way, folks. And you need to play that clip for your Republican-leaning friends, for your Q-believing friends, that on this date, we are recording Thursday, September 22nd, 2022 at 6:50 in the evening, that Darren Gibson from Southpaws said that the QAnon conspiracy is bullshit. Direct quote.
Over and over again in its prophecy. One of the most ridiculous is that JFK Jr. was going to reappear at an Arby's or something in Denver. I don't know, some crazy thing. And the problem is that when these things fail, they come up with a bigger line of bullshit. And people go, oh, that's why. There was just one day on the calendar, so it's next year. Or some ridiculous excuse for the proof that they're irrelevant, they're wrong, they're far-fetched, they're dangerous. You know, they get so crazy, like this man that shot these people.
His family.
His family, that it's like old Yeller when he had rabies. Take him and lock him in the corn crib. Get them out of society because they're out there. They're walking around, and they're time bombs. You can't go to Myers and not pass a bunch of them. They're out there. It's amazing, and they're like snakes in the grass.
Yep, JFK. I've got a neighbor that's got one of these flags. He lives down the street a little bit, thank God, or Pastafar or whoever. But, yeah, he believes that. He's got a big flag, Trump JFK Jr. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got news for you. If I was a member of the Kennedy family, I'd start suing motherfuckers for displaying those flags and saying that kind of crap. I would.
Oh, I know. Yeah, and then Trump had a rally just yesterday, I think it was.
Yeah.
He was flashing the secret Mickey Mouse QAnon sign. I don't know. It's kind of like waving fingers.
They wave the one finger in the air because their slogan is, where we go one, we go all. I tell you what.
I'm waving one finger in the air right now, but it's not that one.
Let me continue here. Rebecca said her family's tragedy is a warning for people to pay attention to their loved ones who may need help. Quote, I think that people need to focus more on radicalization, QAnon, and if they have relatives with guns who are like this, you need to get them help and they need to get checked into a mental institution even if you think they're not dangerous. End of quote. Man, she's right on the money. She really is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She said get him into a facility right away.
Yeah.
You know, old Yeller, the reference I had was he had rabies. And like a father, they love this guy, but they're dangerous. You've got to separate yourself from them, and you've got to separate them from society. They're that nuts.
Absolutely.
Like a rabid dog.
Absolutely. Oh, man. I want to get to another story here. We mentioned education a little bit. I got a great education story out of Idaho, of all places. This is Robert Mackey writing for The Guardian. This is dated September 13th. Have you heard about any of this?
That doesn't sound familiar.
Okay. The nationwide campaign to stifle discussions of race and gender in public schools through misinformation and bullying suffered a reversal in Idaho last week, Monday, when a high school senior vocally opposed to book bans and smears against LGBTQ plus youth took a seat on the Boise school board. He's 18 years old. His name is Shiva Rajbanhari. He was elected to the position by voters in Idaho's capital last week, defeating an incumbent board member who had refused to reject an endorsement from a local extremist group that has harassed students and has pushed to censor local libraries. Raj Bandari, who turned 18 days before the election, was already well known in the school district as a student organizer on climate, environmental, voting rights, and gun control issues. But in the closing days of the campaign, his opponent, Steve Schmidt, was endorsed by the far-right Idaho Liberty Dogs, which in response helped Raj Bandari win the endorsement of Boise's leading newspaper, the Idaho Statesman. Liberty Dogs, just like Cujo, like Old Yeller, time to put them down.
Liberty Dogs.
The Liberty Dogs, they're more like a bunch of little puppies.
Yeah, it's, Idaho is nuts anyway, and this guy better watch himself. I'm just sick in my stomach when I hear the amount of violence being shown to gay students.
I know.
They're not safe.
No.
It's incredible.
It is. Raj Bandari, a third-generation Idahoan whose father is from Nepal, was elected to a 2-year term with 56% of the vote. So, hey, there might be hope yet for deep red Idaho, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. In an interview,
out there camping.
And
it's funny how some of the most redneck meccas are in beautiful terrain. Beautiful. I mean, I love South Dakota, but it's a political wasteland. We've talked about South Dakota and our girlfriend out there. It's barbaric.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a beautiful country. So, stick them in New Jersey or someplace.
No, the deep South. Don't curse the people in New Jersey. They're at least left leaning. So there you go. In an interview, Raj Bandari told The Guardian that although he had hoped people would vote for him rather than against his opponent, he said, quote, "My campaign was not against Steve Schmidt," end of quote. Raj Bandari was shocked that Schmidt did not immediately reject the far-right group's endorsement, again, that being of the Idaho Liberty Dogs. Raj Bandari said, quote, "I think that's what the majority of voters took issue with," end of quote. So the Idaho Liberty Dogs, who have attacked Raj Bandari on Facebook for being pro-mask and pro-vaccine and leading protests which created traffic jams and costed taxpayers money, they spent the summer agitating to have books removed from public libraries in Nampa and Meridian, 2 cities in the Boise metro area. When asked about it, Raj Bandari said, quote, "That's the least of what they've done. Last year, there was a kid who brought a gun to Boise High, which is my school. He got suspended, and they organized an armed protest outside our school," end of quote.
Hey, listen, folks, if you want to see who these people are, right now they're calling themselves Christian nationalists, and they're thick as fleas there in Idaho. And they have vowed that the LGBTQ movement is an enemy movement designed to destroy the state. 61% of poll just last week given to all Republicans. Not every Republican took it, but to a large swath of Republicans. 61% of the Republicans said that the nation should be declared a Christian nation. Okay. When I say Christian nationalists, they incorporate the cross into the American flag. We saw the blue line go through. These knuckleheads have a flag with the cross. They're the most dangerous breed out there right now, Darren.
They certainly are. Yeah, and that was a survey that was conducted by a university in Maryland back in May. It was only just recently published by Politico.
And it's chilling.
It's
chilling.
They acknowledge, or at least some of them acknowledge, that the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law with respect to an establishment of religion. They'll acknowledge it. They just don't agree with it.
Right.
And they said so in the survey.
Yeah.
It's nuts. I don't really know what to say. I wish Carlin was here, because Carlin would go after him. But since he isn't, let me go after him. These are the last gasps of a dying religion. That's all it is. Take a look in the media, folks. You see all these Christian groups, Salem Broadcasting for one, there's others, Education Radio, they like to call themselves. No, they're Indoctrination Radio, because they're a bunch of Christian right-wingers, buying up all these radio stations because they think radio's a dead medium. They think they can just go in and start monopolizing and take over and broadcast their Christian woo-woo bullshit and get away with it. This is another reason why I beg Joe Biden, put me on the FCC board. You want to put an end to this? I'll put an end to it, because I'll be breaking up monopolies. 6612 rule coming back, baby. For those of you that don't know, the old rule was, in this country, you cannot own more than 6 television stations, 6 FM radio stations, and 12 AM radio stations. And you cannot own a broadcast outlet and a newspaper in the same town. Forbidden. This is what needs to come back right now, before it's too late.
Folks, the militant tone you hear in Darren Gibson's voice is the appropriate response, because these Christian nationalists, they're on this crusade. There's never been in history a lesson of fervency and extremism and misplaced hatred than that which has emanated from Christian movements, or I'll even say religious movements. That's where the greatest atrocities have happened. And they're gearing up. They're absolutely hell-bent on ruining the institutions of democracy, taking over into a theocracy. They've already put great limits on education. They're getting into school boards. And if you're not equally aggressive, they're going to win. I warn you. As a person that you heard you just say a minute ago, the dying throes of religion, they realize that. And they're going to fight like hell.
Absolutely.
And we are their enemies. You and I, Darren, and gay people, and blacks, and anybody who even identifies as a liberal, you're their enemy, and they're out to get us.
Yeah, they certainly are. I'm going to skip a little bit here. So, Jack, Shiva Rajbandari really reminds me a lot of you. This could be you when you were young. He started leading Extinction Rebellion climate protests in Boise at the age of 15.
Wow.
He told The Guardian that they would do climate protests, and the Idaho Liberty Dogs would show up with AR-15s to intimidate a bunch of kids protesting. So this is what you get with these right-wing nut jobs.
Yeah.
This is also, by the way, the same Shiva Rajbandari who, when he was 16, publicly confronted Idaho far-right Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin. We've told you about her before.
Oh, yeah.
He told her that the task force that she had set up to examine indoctrination in Idaho education, quote-unquote, was investigating an entirely imaginary threat. He got right in her face. I love this kid.
Yeah.
We might need to try and find him and get him on the show for an interview. This is great stuff.
Yeah, I nominate Letitia as president and Rod as vice president right now.
Yeah. And speaking of the Christian religion, Jack, you told me, you sent me a story about the update on the Bremerton, Oregon coach who filed suit because he was told not to pray with his students, and he did anyway. And the Supreme Court said that he could pray on the field, and the Supreme Court ordered the school district to give him his job back. The guy is missing in action. He hasn't returned.
He's raptured. He's the first guy.
Unfortunately, they've been able to track him down. He's not really raptured. He's just been all over the place.
He's ruptured.
Yeah, ruptured. This guy, what is his name? Joseph Kennedy. We got not the same Joseph Kennedy we're used to, right? So when his former team was prepping for their football season, Joseph Kennedy was in Alaska meeting with Mike Pence and Franklin Graham. On the eve of the first game, he was in Milwaukee being presented with an engraved .22 caliber rifle at an American Legion convention. During the weekend...
That's a godly thing to do.
Yeah. The weekend of the second game, he appeared with Donald Trump at Trump National Golf Club in New Jersey. He saw Trump get a religious award from a group called the American Cornerstone Institute. I think we need to look into that group. That sounds scary as hell. By the way, in court, the school argued that the coach wasn't fired to the point they kept trying to repeat it, and the Supreme Court justices, Alito being one of them, oh no, he was fired, kept repeating it. And finally, the lawyer corrected him and said, quote, it's not a question of firing, and in fact, he was put on paid leave, end of quote. He never came back. So I don't know what the school's going to do. They're supposed to give him his job back, and apparently he doesn't want it. What do you do at that point?
That sounds just like that school, I think, in Oklahoma that fired a woman who gave her students, imagine this, an address for any book that they would so desire to read from a library service, and they fired her for it. And I called out and talked with this assistant superintendent. She says, oh, no, not fired, just asked to step down temporarily. And she was fired. And she, what they covered over said that she then wrote a letter of resignation. But they went after her for teaching history. That's bottom line. And
then we mentioned, it was either last week or 2 weeks ago, Ryan Walters, the head of Oklahoma's education department, got douchebag of the week because he's trying to get her stripped of her teaching certificate.
Wow.
No, if you're a teacher in Oklahoma, get the hell out and go somewhere else.
Your moniker is correct. What is it? Vicious? Savage?
Evil, violent, conservative traitors.
Yeah.
They all are. And speaking of which, we might as well get to our next segment here.
Can't wait for this.
Oh, yeah, it's hammer time. It is time to drop the hammer on the douchebag of the week. Folks, we got 2 winners for you this week, so every time we have 2 winners, Wade Garrett's got to chime in.
The double douche. Who is that guy? Gentlemen? Wade Garrett. Holy shit. Exactly right.
Our first winner this week, Michigan Republican Party co-chair Michonne Maddock. And I believe she's won this award before. This is Eric Lloyd writing for WWTV and WWUP-TV out of Cadillac and Traverse City. Northern Michigan lawmakers are reacting to a homophobic tweet sent by Maddock on September 11th. She quote tweeted a video of U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg calling him a little girl and said that he's bringing his California dreaming here to Michigan. Immediately, the backlash grew on Twitter, including from 2 Traverse City area Republican lawmakers. In a Facebook post, State Representative Jack O'Malley of the 101st District said, quote, when I saw this tweet, I was disgusted. I mean, we are in an era of name-calling and disrespect. It needs to stop. End of quote. State Senator Wayne Schmidt of the 37th Senate District also took to social media, saying in part on a Facebook post, quote, this is not the party I have been a part of my entire political career. Denigrating slurs and highly personal insults have no space in respectful political discourse. End of quote.
Every single opponent, anybody that crossed Trump, got a prefix to their name. You know, Crazy Ted or you name it, right? Every single one of them, he baptized with a slur. You can check that out. So when they say not part of the party, it sure the hell was for 2016 or longer. And it goes on today. That is their modus operandi. It reminds me of, how little kids, when they're like in the, third grade, they start calling each other names and they think of the dirtiest thing they can say, you big dumb skunk, or little girl, you little girl. I mean, it's juvenile. It's so ridiculous, but so indicative of the Republican Party.
Yep. Maddox has not responded publicly to the backlash of her Twitter post, but the Detroit Free Press, Paul Egan, cornered Buttigieg at the North American International Auto Show last Wednesday and got this quote. Buttigieg said of Maddox, quote, "She wants to talk about little girls. Chasten and I are raising a little girl and a little boy, and we are raising them to have better values," end of quote.
Better values, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. By the way, Buttigieg and his family are now living near Traverse City.
Glad he's here. Now, the second douchebag award recipient is, in my book, maybe one of the juiciest targets we've ever had. This is going to blow you away, folks. Go ahead.
All right. So winner number 1, Mashawn Maddox. Winner number 2, Republican 3rd Congressional District for Michigan candidate John Gibbs. Jack, you sent me this story. This is Josephine Harvey writing for the Huffington Post. This is dated September 22nd. A Michigan Republican congressional nominee supported by Donald Trump once said the country would be better if women could not govern or vote, and argued that the patriarchy, quote, is the best model for the continued success of a society, end of quote.
Why isn't that being elucidated to the voters here in Michigan? They're going after Tudor Dixon for her ridiculous stance of no acceptance or no exceptions with abortion, and doing a good job of that. This is common knowledge that while in Stanford, he had a think tank. He brags about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely expounding these ridiculous anti-feminism. It's disgusting. Any woman that will go into the voters box to fight the anti-abortion Republicans would be more motivated by this guy's rhetoric. You got to use it.
Yep. Gibbs made the sexist remarks online in the early 2000s while he was a student at Stanford University, according to CNN's K-File, which unearthed pages from his site via Internet Archive Services. Yes, everything is on the Wayback Machine, folks. Don't be a misogynist. Gibbs, who worked in the Trump administration in the Department of Housing and Urban Development, won the Republican primary, defeating Peter Meyer.
Who voted for impeachment, voted for impeachment.
Yes. He faces Democrat Hillary Scholten in November. They've redrawn the district. If Hillary Scholten is smart, they start running negative ads about this immediately with screenshots of his website.
Immediately.
You need to do what Dana Nessel has done with her opponent, because they've been showing the video of this. He was giving a speech saying that women should not have access to abortion and women should not have access to birth control.
Yeah, it's archaic. It's a dinosaur. This little roly-poly guy, to offset what storm the Republicans know is coming, because they know this is going to come out eventually. They have a commercial now with him sitting down on the couch with his mother. They exchange loving looks. And then, there's a respect given to the mother, and the mother shows that she really is responsible for supporting this. And so, because they know they needed to tie in a feminine influence on this misogynist little Minnie Mouse. And that's exactly what this ad is tailored to do.
You know what? They ought to superimpose a picture of that website right over the beginning of his ad. If the Democrats are smart, which, based on past history, some of them aren't very damn smart. Although, like I said, I'll give credit where credit is due. Dana Nessel's team has gone right after her opponent, and I love it. It's beautiful. Gibbs founded what he called a think tank named the Society for the Critique of Feminism, which was hosted on his personal page at Stanford in 2000 and 2001. So, yeah.
We talked about things you've heard first on Southpaws. I don't know, but if liberal radio has been devoid of this information. So this maybe you're hearing it first now, but this is ammunition that doesn't lose. They have got to take advantage of this.
Absolutely. So to John Gibbs and Michonne Maddock, we have this message for you.
Don't be a douchebag.
Oh yeah, you got that right. Both of you need to stop being evil, violent, conservative, traitorous douchebags. All right, we're starting to get a little low on time, so I want to get to a couple of off-the-cuff stories. This first one is Bill Smith out of KARK Television out of Boone County, Arkansas. Jack, an Arkansas man amputated his own leg in front of his young child back in the beginning of August while claiming at one point to be Jesus and at another point claiming to be Satan.
No, that covers the basis, right? I mean, throw Gandhi in the middle there and you got everybody. Elvis, Jesus, the devil.
Deputies identified the man as 48-year-old Shannon Cox. They said that the man had used a chop saw to amputate his leg.
I don't get the connection between his grandiose belief that he was Jesus and cutting his leg off. What was the motivation for that?
I don't know. He's insane. I mean, it's just what it is. Investigators interviewed the child who confirmed that Cox had cut off his own leg and that the child had seen it. Deputies said that the child appeared to be in shock over the events. Can you blame him? The wife left the scene fearing for her own safety, but left their 5-year-old son there because she was afraid if she took the son, he would kill both of them. Well, that doesn't matter to the deputies because both the man and the woman are being charged with felony counts of endangering the welfare of a minor. The judge has also issued a no-contact order to the husband. He is to stay away from both his wife and his son. Well, we've got that, and let's get to something a lot lighter. I have audio for this, Jack. Let me play this here. This happened in Oklahoma.
A little bit of gears going to some breaking news right now. Let's get out to Jim Gardner. He's over I-40 right at Mustang Road, a bad crash. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, that's right, Lacey. This is a semi that overturned and lost its load here. It has also involved this box truck that's on a little bit further east there. Involved this box truck that they're being loaded right there now. This semi overturned right at I-40, right where the on-ramp is to go to the new Turnpike Spur here. It is also the Mustang on-ramp. When you get off Mustang to get onto I-40 eastbound, that's also the Mustang on-ramp. That is completely shut down due to, he's all the way across the lanes there. So they already got the wreckers here, but there is a lot of stuff to clean up. So this Turnpike Spur and Mustang on-ramp here at I-40 will probably be closed for quite some time. Jim Garpoint live from Bob Mills, Sky News 9, back to you.
Jim, can you tell what he's carrying there?
I got to stop there because we now know what he was carrying. The truck that spilled its load was carrying sex toys and lubricant. Somebody was not going to be having fun in Oklahoma.
Yeah, really.
A lot of people are missing out on it.
So the FBI is going to come out and make sure anything's taken gets returned. Remember, if money gets spilled on a highway, they try and trace down every dollar. Bangs on the door in the middle of the night. You got a dope there?
Unbelievable, the things that are carried via interstate commerce these days. Oh, boy. Well, folks, we are out of time for this week. We'll be back next week. I'm Darren Gibson.
I'm Jack Prince.
Please support independent media, the First Amendment, and a woman's right to choose.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.